Oh, I see. That's the experience of the natural extension. I see. And now I don't see any differently from the way things are. Love transfers to love without any interference, for the situations are identical. As you perceive more and more common elements in all situations, the transfer of your training under the Holy Spirit's guidance increases and becomes generalized. Now there's an important point here. As you perceive more and more common elements in all situations, that means all the situations you run into every day of your life. It means that spiritual understanding is not an exclusive experience that draws you further and further away from daily mundane experiences. And this is very important, because you do not want to become spiritually, let's put it this way, you don't want to become dysfunctional by virtue of your growing spiritual awareness. And if you think that spiritual awareness has very little to do with your daily life, then you are going to arrive at a point where you're trying to separate or be separate from your daily life so that you may abide in your spiritual awareness. And that will cause you to be dysfunctional, and you will not perceive more and more common elements in all situations. As a result, the transfer of your training under the Holy Spirit's guidance will not increase and will not become generalized. Gradually, you learn to apply it to everyone and everything, for its applicability is universal. When this has been accomplished, perception and knowledge, or as I've called it, knowing with a capital K, have become so similar that they share the unification of the laws of God. This is very important. Most people die because they believe that their spirit and their body are two different things existing in two different or as two different modes of being, one which reflects the truth and one which does not. And as a result, they see their body as able to act on its own, a temporary host to that of you which is spiritual, but not a permanent host, because after all it is a host. You see? Now that's the word that you give. That's the perception that the orphan has of the visibility and tangibility of individuality. It sees it as something different from visibility and tangibility. As a result, the belief is that there can never really be a true reconciliation of mind and body, because they are two opposing things fundamentally. Stop letting the truth, stop letting God's truth, stop letting the nature of reality be something different from and fundamentally at odds with everything in your human experience, including your body, including your world. It is inevitable for you to perceive more and more common elements in all situations. It's essential for you to. What is one, not separated, indivisible, what is one cannot be perceived as separate, and the denial of the separation is the reinstatement of knowledge, of knowing with a capital K. At the altar of God, which is where? Right in the center of your being, at the altar of God, the holy perception of God's Son, you, becomes so enlightened that light streams into it. The infilling of the awareness of truth streams in, illuminating your awareness and uncovering to you that this tiny sense of orphanhood is absolute sheer nonsense, meaningless, and that it has been foolish for you to have been laboring under the idea that it's real and true. And the Spirit of God's Son shines in the mind of the Father. Why? Why does it shine in the mind of the Father? It shines in the mind of the Father because suddenly you're no longer claiming to be an orphan. You're no longer claiming a right to be an authority in your own right. You're no longer wanting to make up all the definitions yourself and to have disowned your source. And the Spirit of God's Son shines in the mind of the Father and becomes one with it. You might say that the illumination is a two-way street. You're blessed, but the Father is blessed because you have decided to glorify God again. Very gently does God shine upon himself, loving the extension of himself, which is his Son, you. The world has no purpose on its own. The world has no purpose as it blends into the capital P purpose of God. All the meanings that you've applied to the world as this authoritative little orphan fades, dissolves because you're no longer energizing them. And the world, which was creation all along, becomes illuminated for what it is. And the world you made up that has no purpose blends into the purpose of God. That which you were applying false purpose to blends back into the purpose of God. For the real world has slipped quietly into heaven, where everything eternal in it has always been. Redemption is the uncovering of that which has always been. The redemption of your body will be the uncovering of what has always perfectly been. It's not a manipulation of bad matter into good matter. It's not the manipulation of matter into spirit. Redemption is the remembering and the unobstructed conscious experience of what has always been. There, the Redeemer and the redeemed join in perfect love of God and of each other. Very important. And of each other. Again, as you perceive more and more common elements in all situations, and we could say all brothers, all people, places, and things, the transfer of your training under the Holy Spirit's guidance increases and becomes generalized. Gradually you learn to apply it to everyone and everything, for its applicability is universal. When this has been accomplished, perception and knowledge have become so similar that they share the unification of the laws of God. It is very important for you to not continue to make differences between the things you see. This is me, and that is not me. That is him, and that is not him. This is real, and this is unreal. This is matter, and this is spirit. This is acceptable, and that is unacceptable. This eyeball is acceptable. That eyeball is not. This eyeball has something wrong with it. That one does not. This hip is acceptable. That hip is not. This knee is acceptable. That one is not. That one needs surgery because something is wrong with it. It is not acceptable. You must stop making differentiations. And then you must bring all of the things which you have made differentiations between under the purview of God. You must bring it back into the acknowledgement that God is in his holy place and all is well and nothing is outside him. Not this knee, not that knee. Not this hip, not that hip. Not this eye, not that eye. None of them are outside the omnipotent authority of God, being all, without conflict, without dissonance of any kind, because God is single. God is singular. Creation is pure. The world of itself has no purpose as it blends into the capital P purpose of God. For the real world has slipped quietly, where? Into heaven, into what it was all along, where everything eternal in it has always been. There, the Redeemer and the redeemed join in perfect love of God and of each other. Heaven is your home, and being in God, it must also be in you. The point tonight is for all of you to come back into your simplicity. And to withdraw the temptation to characterize your body or your world as though it had a personality capable of providing self-direction to it that might not be in your best interests. To remember that the use to which you put your mind governs what you experience, either distorting your perception of what perfectly is, or undistorting it by virtue of your returning to the proper, sane use of your mind. And remember, as I said, when you're experiencing an ache or a pain, ask God, are you creating this? And please, don't indulge in this really insane and perverse question. God, are you creating this for my benefit? If God isn't creating it, it isn't happening, except in your imagination, your troubled imagination. The troubled imagination that all of you have as long as you believe that you're orphans, that you're on your own and it's up to you. Remember that so that you can pinpoint what it is that you need to abandon and stop doing. And then ask the Holy Spirit or ask God to correct your mind by causing an infilling of the awareness of truth that renders your thinking nonsensical enough to you that you willingly lay it down. As we said last week, you walk with mighty companions. Everything in its true light, as what it truly is, stands with you in support of and confirmation of your being in your right mind. Help is available to you. But you must invite it in instead of continuing to energize your right to have your own thoughts and believe them. Now I trust that you will all have a better week this week than you had this last week. And if you don't believe your doubt. Ask yourself, what source are you going to gather your information from? And if it isn't the Holy Spirit, if it isn't me, if it isn't the Father, then stop going to that source and get back into your peace. I know many of you might be saying, well, why is he stopping here? We've just arrived at the point where it says, the guide for miracles. That's just exactly what I need. What you need is what I've shared. Without a grasp of what I've shared, the guide for miracles is not going to make sense. And I don't want you grasping for a means to make a miracle happen. I'm never ever going to tell you how to make a miracle happen, but I am always going to tell you what you need to do to let a miracle in. Okay. I love you all. I love you all, every one of you, and I look forward to being with you next week.